How you doing, pal?
It's a bit of a rough day. Today is April 3rd, 2020, and my cousin passed away yesterday from coronavirus, so I'd like to dedicate today's show to Ralph Lauricella, who was a native New Yorker, grew up in Mount Vernon and Eastchester, and was a teacher for 30 years. Mount Vernon Public School District. Was a great family man and good son and a good brother.
My condolences. That's terrible, terrible news. I didn't know he was a school teacher.
Yeah, public school in Mount Vernon.
And he's been in the hospital for a while.
Couple of weeks. Yeah.
Here in New York.
In upstate, Poughkeepsie. He moved there after he retired. He retired a few years ago. And this is reality for a lot of people right now. This is what we're dealing
terrible,
with.
Man.
So,
I mean, here in New York, it's a lot of people dying. Yeah. My heart goes out to them and all the workers, the doctors and the nurses and all the hospital workers and all the people working in the grocery stores and the pharmacies. I mean, it's just incredible that they're taking the train, they're going to work, and I hope they are rewarded somewhere along the line.
They are the heroes, that's for sure.
That's for sure. So, you know what I was thinking? This episode we're doing today is episode 3.
Season 1.
It is season 1. It's denial, anger, and acceptance. And we'll get into what that means later. But I was thinking, it's a pretty hard fucking job to be a mobster.
For real.
I mean, it's not a 9 to 5. You work at the post office, you deliver the mail, you go home, you have a couple of beers, you eat dinner. I mean, this is 24 hours a day.
No, and not everybody lives like John Gotti, like a movie star, right? No.
7 days a week, 365 days a year. I mean, let's think about it. You got to hustle to make money. You've got to
worry about getting whacked. Worry about getting pinched.
Worried about another family cutting in on your business.
Or your own. Somebody below you wants to take over.
Trying to take the top. You got to worry about your wife. You got to worry about the kids. You got to worry about your goomah. I mean, this is, for me, 24-hour a day fucking headache. I mean, why would you go into this gig?
It's not an easy lifestyle, that's for sure.
You
got to take a lot of orders,
So of course, because everybody's got a boss except for the very guy at the top.
Sirico Sirico's talked about it. I'm not revealing anything that he hasn't spoken about publicly, but he was connected. He wasn't a made guy, but he was offered to become a made guy.
To be made.
And he turned it down because he said, I'm not good at taking orders.
Yeah. And that's what you're doing. And you're constantly, like we talked about before, you're kicking the money up. But let's take Tony. Okay. I mean, I think the show certainly shows that not everything's great, all the time. I mean, but look at Tony. Okay. He's the top dog. Always got money problems, got the big house. I mean, he lives a very high lifestyle. But he's getting it from every which way. His kid, his wife, the goomah, the guys at work. Christopher's a fuck-up. He's a constant thorn in his side, constant, and as the series goes on, we'll see that there's a lot of guys,
You grew up in Bensonhurst, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, was there a visible presence of the mob when you grew up?
Oh, absolutely.
Was there the social club? Was there the, pork store? What was that like?
In the 60s and the 70s, Bensonhurst was, probably the 50s, a huge mob enclave. Huge. Even in the 80s, going into the 80s, that Bath Avenue gang. And I grew up right off of Bath Avenue. They were everywhere. You didn't necessarily know they were wise guys, especially when you were younger.
No, they didn't wear badges.
But they were just like Joey's uncle and my brother, my buddy Sammy on my Little League team and Jimmy's this. And then, you open up the paper, you go, holy shit, I had no idea Jimmy's uncle, murdered 3 people. They were just guys in the neighborhood. And they were social clubs everywhere. You go buy your fireworks. They were down the block. You go in the alley. Some of them knew my father. I lived around the corner from where my father grew up, and my grandmother lived around the corner. So, the butcher downstairs, he was mobbed up, and just everyone.
Was there a social club that was like the headquarters?
Oh, there was a lot of social clubs. Spiro had a social club on Bed.
Were there different families, or was it one particular family that ran your name?
I would say different ones. Patty Boxcars, he had one.
Patty Boxcars. Was that referred to the railroad or to the dice?
The dice.
The dice.
Patty Boxcars, his son Petey. I mean, there was all these guys were all over the place. You knew them. You respected them. As long as you stay out of their way, nobody's bothering you. It was a safe neighborhood, a tough neighborhood. But guys that I grew up with, some of them became pharmacists, doctors, cops, plumbers. Some of them became mob guys. One guy did 25 years. Guys that I played ball with every day. So why? Why does one guy go right? One guy goes left? I don't know, I mean, you see the lifestyle. They got money, cars, the Cadillac.
Power, respect, fear.
That's for sure, But I'm just saying it is not an easy gig.
Especially,
it's easy night.
Especially after Rico. After Rico, it became a very different thing.
And usually, and I hate to say it, especially nowadays, they usually wind up dead or in jail. And I also think that's why so many guys have become rats. Mikey Scars, that name. He ratted on the Gaudis, and he was part of that. I went to elementary school with him. I played softball with him up until I was 19 years old. He was a guy from the neighborhood, a good guy. Yeah. And he got involved, and I had gone to Vegas, and, blah, blah, blah.
That's it.
And even in Vegas, there were guys that were waiters, and they became rats, and it was mobbed up out there, a different kind.
Did Mikey Scars go into witness protection?
I think he went to witness protection. I don't know if he's in or got out. Or, a lot of guys don't like that life, so they're just out and about. There's a guy in Vegas, Frank Collada. I knew him when I was a bouncer at Paul Anka's club in the early 80s. He was a technical advisor on Casino. Matter of fact, Frank Vincent played him in Casino. He's from Chicago. He was a henchman all day long. Went into the witness protection program, snitched on Spilaccio because they were going to kill him.
Spilaccio's the guy that Pesci played in Casino.
Pesci played. I saw him walking through the Riviera while they were shooting Casino. They were shooting Casino while I was working. And he walked by me. The hair on my back of my neck stood up like I saw a ghost. This was in the mid-'90s, And he wound up talking to me. He said, I saw the way you looked at me, and he remembered me from the old days. And he is giving tours right now in Las Vegas. He takes you tours of places where guys in Vegas were whacked.
Wow. Oh, really?
I swear to you.
That is
Look it up.
Very weird.
Frank Collada. Always nice to me.
Like where bodies are buried and shit like that?
No. Like in that pool, we drowned this guy,
no
Jerry
way.
So-and-so. I swear to you. Look it up online. Go to the
terrible.
website. Frank Collada. You go in the car. It's a tour. A car or a bus.
A hearse?
No, yeah, exactly. And he goes around. This is the bar we all hung out. This was this place. They had it was called the Hole in the Wall Gang. And they would go through the walls of houses and businesses, and they would rob. It was a bunch of thieves.
And that's still going on, this tour?
The tour is going on now. Well, what went on, probably not, but maybe. The tour is on. Look it up. Frank Collada. He will give you a tour of infamous places.
Well, he's certainly resourceful. I got to give him that credit.
Chicago guy. He's in his 70s. He's been asked, hey, are you afraid of them coming after you? He said, let them try. He is a tough fucking guy that I would not want to mess with. A nice guy. Luckily, I always got along with him. But for real.
Amazing.
Witness protection tours. All right.
Speaking of tough guys. So denial, anger, and acceptance. So that title comes from the 5 stages of grief is actually denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler, talking about the 5 stages of grief. This is a way to frame dealing with how grief comes and the waves that it comes in. And if you look at it, they call this denial, anger, and acceptance. This episode, there's 3 scenes with Tony and Melfi. In the first scene, Tony's in denial. We'll go into it in detail. Second scene, he's angry. And in the third scene, he has acceptance. It's very interesting that that's exactly how they played those 3 scenes using that.
And they are talking about Jackie Aprile, who is the boss, played by Michael Rispoli,
who will be a guest on our the next episode on our show.
Yes, and I'm very much looking forward to that. And he was one of the last guys to audition for Tony Soprano. He's had an incredible career. He's an incredible actor, and I look very much to talking to him.
And this episode was directed by a guy named Nick Gomez, who
I never met him. Is this the only one he ever did?
Yeah. Now, he did Edie's movie, Laws of Gravity. That really kind of broke Edie and introduced her to the public, that independent movie. And then Nick Gomez, Edie Falco, Paul Schultz. There's Hal Hartley. There was Stanley Tucci, Wesley Snipes. All these people went to SUNY Purchase in the 1980s, early 80s.
I think John Turturro went there also.
He went to SUNY New Paltz. But Larry Meistrich and Bob Goss, they created Shooting Gallery, which was a little independent production company studio in New York. They went to SUNY Purchase. They eventually they did Laws of Gravity. They also did Sling Blade, which was a big movie for them.
Yeah.
I met them back in the early 90s, did a movie called Handgun with Seymour Cassell and Treat Williams and Johnny Ventimiglia. But it was this, little group of film people, who started at SUNY Purchase and then really broke a lot of ground in independent film. And Shooting Gallery particularly was really one of the people who launched independent film in New York, the renaissance that happened with Sundance and with what was happening in New York. So Nick was instrumental in that. He also did the pilot. He did the pilot of Homicide.
And he also has gone on to have a hell of a career as a TV director. He's done everything. He's worked and worked. Now, it was written by David Chase and Mark Saraceni. He hasn't, I looked him up. Obviously, I've never met him. He wrote 5 Soprano episodes over the years. What happened to him?
I don't really remember him. I think it was early in the show.
Well, it was the 3rd episode, obviously. But Mark, if you're out there, we love you anyway.
Great work.
And, come and say hello someday. We'd love to have you on. So we open up exterior night. Chris and Brandon, they returned Junior's truck because they stole the suits in episode 2. Tony told them they had to bring back the merchandise, of course.
Because it's a company that Junior gets kicks.
But of course, the thieving guys that they are, they can't help themselves, and they kept suits for themselves.
Of course.
Silvio and Paulie and Tony and Big Pussy. Because they got larceny in their heart, these guys. That's it.
And Christopher and Brendan, they drop off the truck and they're doing coke. Obviously, they're going down a bad road. They look very high, and they're talking shit as people who do cocaine are wont to do, and then
now, when you were doing the coke, what was that?
I think
what actually were you doing?
Probably inositol, which they use to cut cocaine.
So what were you doing? You were wearing a diaper? You had to take a fucking dump every 5 minutes?
I don't remember. I wasn't wearing a diaper. That I do remember. You make do. What are you going to do? It was like we were doing, 8 balls of it. We were doing little blasts here and there.
Balls of
8 balls
baby
of
laxative.
You'd be on the toilet all day long.
All right,
but, then you cut to Junior, and he's talking about. They said, "Tell Tony thanks." The guys from the trucking company said, "Tell Tony thanks," and Junior's pissed off because he wants the credit. I brought this up before. So much of people's beefs is about appreciation, not being appreciated, not getting the credit, not getting the pat on the back. And Junior really has and
he's talking to Mikey Palmisi. That's his guy.
That's his right-hand man at the time.
The one thing, but just to go back, Christopher and Brendan, whenever they're together and high, whatever, they talk shit.
And they look high, too, I have to say. I don't know how that...
You guys just played it great. You're talking bullshit, and now Junior has a great line here. Junior's your favorite character.
Yeah.
And Mikey's getting them all fucking riled up. They're eating. Junior's having soup, and of course he's saying, "What are we making a Western here?"
Right. He also says, I bought Tony's son. He's talking about AJ. I bought him a $400 surfboard, which he must mean a skateboard, because he's not going to buy him a surfboard. He bought him a skateboard.
He's got the goddamn best lines ever.
And he calls it a surfboard, which I love.
So now Tony, he's talking about the painting. He's in Melfi's office now. He's talking about the Rorschach, right?
The Rorschach test. He calls it the Rorschach or the Rorschach.
Yes. Now let me ask you: do you think the picture has any meaning, or is it just a picture?
Well, the picture,
like she claims,
there's a whole theme of pictures in the script. So there's the picture of the barn that Tony thinks has some hidden meaning, as a test or something. Then there's the picture above his girlfriend, his goomah's bed, which is kind of a David Hockney ripoff. And
she says it reminds her of David Hockney.
She says David Hockey, but it's obviously means David Hockney. There's also then at the last scene with Junior and Livia, he's helping her hang. It's a photograph, but it's in a frame on the wall as well. And it's also the first time we see the Soprano bedroom, which has the painting behind the headboard, which is Pontormo's The Visitations, a Renaissance painting. That's the first time we see that. There's a weird recurring theme of pictures on the wall, and I don't know how much of that is deliberate.
I mean, that stuff went over, the first time, that went over my head. I mean, I caught the 2 paintings this time. I didn't catch the one in the Soprano bedroom.
But this is the first Melfi scene. This is the scene about denial, because Tony says, she says it must be depressing and scary. He goes, "Not to me. I'm not scared." And then he says about Jackie, "Don't worry, he'll scare the cancer away. This is a tough guy."
He is so enthralled with Jackie. I mean,
he loves Jackie.
The way Christopher loves Tony and wants to please him, Tony wants to do that to Jackie. No. He'll scare that cancer away. What a head of hair on him.
I wonder how much Tony's scared of becoming the boss. Does that scare him? Because he knows if Jackie goes, chances are he's going to have to step into that role. And that's a good thing, but it's a scary thing.
Nobody wants that job.
That's a rough thing. You're a target. Nowadays, you're a target for the feds. You're a target for other people, other wise guys.
Well, he talks about that with the RICO Act and this and that. Who really wants the job? Who wants to be high profile like that? So the next thing, we go into the hospital. Jackie's there with Tony, Hesh,
his
Paulie.
wife. Well, first we see Sharon Angela, who plays.
See, I forgot
Rosalie.
about that. Not that I forgot about Sharon, because we love her to death. I forgot she was Jackie's wife.
Right, she's Jackie Jr.'s
Later on,
mother.
Down the road, we see she's Jackie Jr.'s mother, and she is involved with Ralphie, the Joey Pants character, but that's down the road. But Sharon, who you've worked with forever and you've known, and I love her. She's works, and plus she's an acting coach at Stella Adler.
Strasbourg.
No, Strasbourg.
I met her when I was 19 at Strasbourg.
She's absolutely wonderful. She was in Hungry Ghost with us.
Played your ex-wife.
and she plays that, but she plays that role great. And Mikey Parmisi, played by the great Al Sapienza, he's just a pain in the fucking ass.
Well, what's interesting is Jackie calls him the Grim Reaper because Mikey Palmici keeps talking about guys who had cancer, which there's people who do that.
Of course.
They like to talk about sick people and cancer.
Oh, you're dead. Listen, my friend, the guy, he's dead. He's dead.
But interestingly enough, in From Where to Eternity, the first episode I wrote, which is in season 2, Christopher sees Mikey Palmici in hell. And Paulie, when he goes to the psychic says he sees Mikey Palmici as a leader of a group of dead souls that's following Paulie. That's a connection to the Grim Reaper thing. All right. Back to the hospital room. Now,
Jackie's in
Michael Rispoli and Jim did a movie together called Before the Sopranos called Angie, directed by Martha Coolidge, which starred Gina Davis, but Aida was in it as well. And I think that's how they met.
Aida Totoro.
I think that's the first time those guys met.
Who I heard from this morning, she said to say hello, and she's doing okay. She's out on Long Island.
She's going to be a guest in the future for us.
She will be a guest for us. That would be a good one. We love Aida Totoro.
And Michael also did at the same time that we were doing season 1 of The Sopranos. He had a big part in Summer of Sam. He played Joey T. He was great, the leader of the
he's done a
guys. He's a great actor.
He was in Rum Diary with Johnny Depp. I mean, he's
right, the Terry Gilliam movie. Yeah,
great. So Jackie's in the hospital, and you got Paulie there. You got Hesh,
and Paulie's talking about
Silvio.
Stem cell research. Paulie has we'll see, it grows over the course of the series, an obsession with medical stuff and illness. And
what do you mean, in the course of the series or the course of his life?
And he's a bit of a hypochondriac.
I'm going to go off a little bit, just a little bit. At the finale, I had my table next to him at the Soprano when we had the last episode in Radio City, the last season. Tony Sirico's table, he brought 9 doctors and their wives.
His personal team, his medical team.
His personal team. He was walking around. They were at Radio City and then at Rockefeller Center at the party. 9 doctors and their wives. So we see Sharon with Mikey Parmisi. She kind of gives him a friendly slap, like, shut up, stop talking. You're upsetting Jackie. And then the guys come in, and Hesh, always the voice of reason. Silvio's, Jackie says something to Silvio, like, hey, you Jew, making a funny reference. And it reminds Silvio about the Hasids and this scheme. And Hesh tells him, don't get involved. You don't want to get involved with Hasidim. And what does Sirico say?
Hasidim, but I don't believe him. Like an Amos and Andy type of line. Now, I don't know if anybody knows this, the fans knows, you're half Jewish, right?
Yes.
And what's your mother? What's your mother's maiden name?
Lorraine Bernstein.
So you could have been Lorraine Steve Bernstein, just as easily.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I was telling someone that, I played basketball at Brooklyn College 100 pounds ago in the late 70s. And then I tried out for an Israeli team because my mother was Jewish. I was eligible. And they wanted me. I made the team. I had a tryout in Long Island. And they wanted me to work on a kibbutz. And that didn't sound so hot.
That didn't appeal to you.
So I hopped a plane to Vegas. Kibbutz.
You went from one desert to the other.
Vegas. Exactly.
But did you have like a bar mitzvah and a bris and all that stuff?
No. I was raised Catholic, but I had a whole Jewish side of the family. So I'm very in tune with that whole world. I had all kinds of uncles and aunts.
Who do you got on that side?
There was my Uncle Irving, my Uncle Dookie. There was my Aunt Ida, my Aunt Adele. My grandmother's name, my mother's mother, was named Sally Moskowitz.
Amazing.
And she lived on Bay 23rd Street in Brooklyn.
So you could make Jewish jokes. You're kind of allowed to.
I'm okay.
Like, remember the Seinfeld episode when Bryan Cranston converts and he starts
green light to make Jew jokes.
You could do it. Good for you. Mazel tov, Steve. Did you have any dealings with the Hasidim? Have you dealt with them?
You know,
what Hesh is talking about, don't get involved. It's almost like they're another mob family. Don't get involved.
Well, they are tough. They're a tough group. But I had a little bit. When I was in college, I used to clean chimneys.
You were a chimney sweep?
Chimney sweep, yes.
Like
my friend
Mary Poppins, like the guy in...
Well, I didn't go on the roofs, really. Well, I did a little bit. But we cleaned the boilers and the roofs. And I remember going in to one basement, and there was two Hasids in coveralls. You know, they had their yarmulkes and the beards and what do you call it?
Pace.
And I was stunned that they would have a job like that. You know,
that's a dirty job.
You know? I was just stunned that, you know, because usually you don't see them. They were in coveralls. They were working guys, and they were fine, you know. And I didn't live that far from Borough Park. And Borough Park at the time, still is a huge Hasid. I never had a problem with a Hasid. At one time, when I was a kid, there was a synagogue in the neighborhood, and I think on Fridays they can't turn the lights off. The guy gave me a quarter.
Use electricity, I guess.
Yeah, guy gave me a quarter to shut the light off.
Yeah.
I was a young kid walking down the block.
Wow.
So that's my Hasidim story. Hasidim, I don't believe him. All right, so Hesh, once again, the voice of reason always says, do not get involved with these people. Yeah, so you got Meadow and Hunter. Hunter, once again, David's daughter who did 6 episodes, and she does a fine job. She's a good actress. I don't know why she didn't continue.
Because she's smart.
I believe her all day long.
She's very good,
you know, people make the acting so complicated. Listen, do you believe that person in the role or don't you? I believe her as a high school student.
She's very good.
That's it. Let's stop all the bullshit. Do you believe me or not? So now they're talking about, they're on the phone and the SATs, and they're looking, you know, they're looking, they're going to need some shit, you know, some met to keep up. SAT pressure's coming. They got choir practice or recital and that. So they're a little concerned, the two girls. Next up, we got Tony and Carmela go over to Artie Bucco.
Yeah, that's some great scenes there, because you really see Carmela kind of comparing her big mansion and looking at kind of the little tiny house that Artie and Charmaine are moving into. And there's, you know, it's a double-edged thing. I guess she does maybe feel a little bit sorry for them and their situation. The restaurant burned down.
She says the house is cozy.
But she also, you know, there's an ego thing.
But when you say the house is cozy,
that means it's small.
That's not a compliment.
That's not a compliment.
She's being very
she's lording it a little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, how cozy. Welcome to the neighborhood. They're not really in the neighborhood. You know, and
Artie, I wonder, because there's little subtle things. Does Artie suspect that Tony had something to do with this? Because it's right after Tony offered to give him the plane.
Is Artie that smart?
Well, listen, you don't have to. He doesn't want to believe it. But look, if it's arson, like the insurance investigators are saying, well, he knows Tony's involved. There's mobsters involved.
So you think?
I think he might think. I think he might thought about it and then thinks, nah, probably not. But
I think Tony's very guilty. I think Tony is very guilty. You see the look on his face.
Yeah.
And you know, listen, let's not kid ourselves. They didn't have to fucking do it this way.
That wasn't the best, brightest.
They didn't have to. They didn't want to. Listen, let's see if this makes sense. All right, we don't want Junior to kill the guy in the restaurant because it's going to ruin business. So we'll burn it down so he has no business.
Right.
You know what I mean? Wow, that was a good idea. You know, that makes no fucking sense.
They could have killed the guy themselves.
Exactly. All right. So now Tony and Silvio, they have a meeting with Shlomo.
Shlomo, played by Chuck Lowe, who the late Chuck Lowe, he passed away a few years ago. He was great in Goodfellas as Maury.
Yes.
The weak guy. He was also in The Mission. He was in King of Comedy. He was in Once Upon a Time in America. He's a landlord of Robert De Niro's in real life.
So he was his landlord. So De Niro got him in, but De Niro didn't get him this gig because De Niro claims to have never seen this.
I think he started his career.
But he claims to never have seen The Sopranos.
I don't know what to say.
I'm just saying
maybe he did, maybe
what he said. Okay, now, Chuck Lowe does a great job. He plays kind of another scumbag like Maury.
Yeah.
Kind of very similar.
Yeah.
He's great.
Conniving and scheming guy who wants
and the son doesn't want to have anything to do with it. The son is very anti getting these Italian guys.
Well, because he says you're creating a golem. A golem is from Jewish folktale about they make a man out of clay to do their bidding, and this guy turns into to be their worst nightmare because he's a giant and he's like a Frankenstein. And he's comparing Tony and the mob. The son is comparing Tony and the mob to the golem. He's creating. And
there's some good lines there. You know, they're telling him Tony's not happy with the son. Obviously, the son's kind of a smart ass, but not stupid. So
Paulie, Chuck Lowe, his character, they want to get it. He wants to get a divorce for his daughter from the son-in-law who's running the motel that he's got to.
And they don't want to give him anything. They don't want to give the son-in-law.
They want all the value of the hotel for themselves. So we go to the hotel. The son-in-law is played by a great actor named Ned Eisenberg. I first saw him in a play.
I'm a fan.
He did a play and played a character. The name of the play was called Hesh, ironically enough.
Oh, really?
Ned was the lead. It was a Naked Angels New York off-Broadway production. A guy named Matthew Weiss wrote, and our friend Frank Pugliese directed it. But Ned and I worked together in a movie called Last Man Standing. Now, that was directed by Walter Hill, who did The Warriors and 48 Hours, Hard Times. Ned and I played cousins, wise guys in the Old West, basically. And it was a Bruce Willis movie with Christopher Walken. And that's when I first met Ned, and we worked together, and he's just great.
Great actor, great New York character actor. Yeah. I think he's now in HBO series Plot Against America. He's been in Mrs. Maisel, been in a ton of stuff. He does an incredible job here. Yeah, incredible job. And so Paulie and Silvio go to visit him, and he's not having it right off the bat. You're wasting your time. Get out of here.
And he's willing to take a beating.
And what does Paulie do? He calls him a fucking weirdo, and he hits him in the head with the bell on the front desk of the hotel.
The guy doesn't budge.
And he doesn't budge, but the guy, he makes sense. Listen, I put up with everything here.
I put my heart and soul into this hotel.
I made this business what it is, and now he should walk away with nothing. So right off the bat, he ain't fucking having it. Okay, so Carmela wants to have a fundraiser at the house. Tony, never mind a regular guy wouldn't want that. This guy's a mob guy, and he's going to have strangers coming into his house.
But Carmela, it's a social climbing thing. It's also a charitable thing. There's a double edge to all this stuff. Like, sure, she wants to raise money for the pediatric hospital, but...
And I think a lot of it is she wants to show off this big, beautiful house. She wants to show everyone, look how we live. Look what we got. This is a mansion. This is a beautiful house. And she wants to show the parents, the teachers, who's ever at the fundraiser, look what we got.
No, she wants
I want to say there's more of that. They want it catered, so they're going to throw the Buccos a bone. They're going to hire them. And they're going to have Charmaine. And it reminds me, though, Tony says we really have to have these strangers in our home. Now, we did a charity event for St. Jude's in the middle of the Sopranos, if you remember.
Out on Long Island.
And a hot summer day, this huge mansion. We raised...
we were very drunk.
Very, very drunk. It was 102 degrees. And in me, you, and Johnny V on the car ride, I could barely step out of the limo. But... It was so hot anyway. I don't know what
you were the auctioneer.
Yes. So it was 400,000. I was the auctioneer, and you were so drunk that you bid 13,000 on a Vespa, and the next day you forgot. Luckily, Jim outbid you. But so we raised 400,000. It was Tony Sirico's charity, and I won't say who, but one of our cast members. They wouldn't allow him in the house because it was in this huge backyard, kind of the same deal as a Tony guy, and he pissed on the front lawn.
Well, we're not saying who that was.
The house. We're not going to say who it was. maybe sometime down the road, but just to veer off a little bit. Okay, so Meadow and Hunter are looking to score
crystal meth. And Edie, Carmela calls Hunter cacciatore, which means hunter in Italian.
Oh, really?
So that's where that comes from, just so you know. Chicken cacciatore is Hunter's chicken, basically.
So, but Brendan and her exchange a look. Hunter's
a flirtation. Hunter's trouble a little bit. Yeah,
she's trouble.
She's a little trouble.
She's a bad
I love
influence.
Brendan's line. He goes, "Why don't you call Tony to call Junior to see if we could change the channel?"
Hey, Anthony DeSando is so good.
He's really good.
He is really good. All right, then we get to the Soprano house. Carmela and Charmaine, they're talking about the fundraising catering, and you see Carmela make a gesture to her housekeeper, I guess the Polish housekeeper. She goes like this.
Right. And that's going to come back.
Come over here. Not a nice thing to do to anyone. Carmela kind of forgot where she's came from. You know, these early episodes for sure. Certainly gives that condescending wave. All right, so in the next scene in the hospital, Tony plays a joke on Jackie and he brings a hooker.
Bernadette Pinotti plays the nurse, the hooker dressed as a nurse, or stripper dressed as a nurse. She was in a few of the episodes, I think, but she's great. She's a good friend of ours.
Was she in the Bada Bing?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And she does a great job.
She's really good.
You know, she reaches under. At first, you might think she is a nurse. You know, Tony makes a story up. He had to bring AJ to the hospital, you know. Okay, so now Tony goes back to Melfi.
And this is the anger scene out of the three that we spoke about. And he's angry at the fact that his friend's going to die. You know, I mean, I think
it's a funny line in there. She works at he's talking about the hooker. She works at the club. She's a real nice girl. He tells Melfi.
Right. She's a real nice girl.
Which I'm sure
she is. Sure.
She did this as a favor to him, and doesn't give Melfi. He starts screaming at Melfi because Melfi says it doesn't sound good. Kind of, he asks, "What do you think? You're a doctor," and doesn't give Tony the answer that he wants, which is, "Oh, sure, I'm sure he's going to be okay," or whatever. You know? So here's the fundraiser.
Christopher shows up at the fundraiser. Before when it's getting started.
Carmela's planning. She's on the phone. Christopher slips in the house. You don't knock on the door?
The door's probably open because they're having guests that day. You know, they're having workers coming in and out and all that stuff. No, he's trying to sneak in there. He doesn't want to see Tony or Carmela. But it's funny because he says, "I'm not a drug dealer," which drug dealers always seem to say that.
Oh, yeah. They're
never a drug dealer. They sell drugs, but they're not a drug dealer.
I know a guy selling drugs for 35 years. He claims he's not a drug dealer.
That's a very common.
35 years. I'm not, I don't do this for a living.
I don't do this.
I don't do this for a living. Really? I've known you for 35 years. That's all I've ever known you do.
That's a very common thing. And in that scene, this is a little aside. In the scene in Meadow's room, there's a song playing. It's called End of the Century. It's by a band named Damon and Naomi. And they used to be in a band called Galaxy 500 that I was kind of like a groupie for in the early 90s. And I would go see them anytime they played.
And it just so happened that they used them.
Yeah. And Dean Wareham, who was the main songwriter for Galaxy 500, went on and started a band called Luna. It's a great band. Galaxy 500, one of my favorite bands of all time.
Really?
Damon and Naomi, they started their own. I think they were a married couple. They started their own band. And that's the song that's they use. It's actually called Turn of the Century, not End of the Century.
So now Christopher, you go up to the thing. Carmela sees you go up the stairs. She comes up. You guys switch over. She just barges in the door.
Yeah, and I say that, Christopher says that they're to talk about Brendan's interest in Hunter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You tell her, I know we don't really get along, but I don't think you want to see me dead. I got to say one thing. No one has a nice thing to say about Brendan Falone. No one.
He's in bed. Yeah.
Not Livia, not Junior. No one likes Brendan Farrar.
Tony hates him. Tony doesn't like him.
He's a bad guy in the neighborhood. Nobody.
He probably always
Carmella.
was. They probably have known him for years since he was a little kid. He was,
and we all know kids like that. They're just a bad seed from when they were, a guy in the first grade. You see him 25 years later, he's still a fuck up. It's amazing. So the Bucos fight about, Artie saying that Tony wants to help, and of course Charmaine once again wants no part of this. No part of the mob, no part of anything. And he's going, you're a hypocrite because you're taking the money to help with the fundraiser, but it's a job.
But that's a job.
She's doing a job for Carmella, and Carmella's paying her.
Well, she says you're squeezing the quail. I like that line.
Yeah.
Johnny,
that's what makes it's little shit like that, the little detail that separates this show from all the other shows. Yeah. It's not forced. It's just a funny line. Carmella calls Charmaine with her hand.
Well, she has that scene with the great actress Angelica Torn, who's now Angelica Page, who plays the woman from the hospital, I guess. And she was in The Hungry Ghost as well. She worked with us in the theater at Studio Dante. She did a play with Sharon Angela called From Riverdale to Riverhead. Her mother was the great actress Geraldine Page, and her father was the great actor Rip Torn. And Angelica's a great, done a lot of theater. She did a one-woman show about Sylvia Plath. That was incredible. She's a tremendous actress, a big talent. She's done a lot of movies, a lot of TV, and great.
She's great. So she was in there, and she's trying to show off kind of Carmella, and she gives Charmaine the same wave.
Condescending wave, yes.
The same wave that she gave the Polish maid. And you see Kathy Narducci, who plays Charmaine, the great Kathy Narducci, has a great look on her face. She looks at it, then gives the phony smile. Okay, Tony and Artie argue about the past. They're having a food fight.
And Artie's mad. Tony says to him, I don't like having all these people. And Artie's like, well, why'd you invite them? Like, it's a real edge. That's why I said, does Artie somewhere know that Tony burned down his place or had something to do with it? I think he knows if it's arson, it's got to be wise guys. And if it's wise guys, somehow it's got to involve Tony. Because Artie has a real edge there.
And then they have a food fight like they're kids. You see what good friends they really are. So Paulie and Silvio beat up the Jewish son-in-law. They're knocking him around. Silvio has like that big hammer that you pound meat
tenderizer, the
mallet, and he ain't having it. Ned Eisenberg, the son-in-law, he is not having it. He says, 15,900 Jews held off 15,000 Romans, and Silvio has the great line. He attacks Paulie, and Paulie, they knock him down. He goes, "This guy's a fucking bull," and Silvio says, we should hire this guy.
If we don't kill this prick, we should put him to work.
I mean, a great line. And this guy, not because he's big or strong or in shape, but he's so passionate and so righteous that they're doing the wrong thing.
So they call Tony, and that's the first time we see the goomah played by Oksana Lada. She's playing Irina. In the pilot, it was a different actress.
Yeah, and she was around for a couple of seasons, I believe.
She was around a lot. Yeah, she's very good.
Yeah.
And he leaves the house in his robe and like sandal. It's almost like very biblical. It almost looks like Moses' robe from the Ten Commandments with the sandals, like the I don't know if that was intention. That imagery is very biblical because then Ned Eisenberg talks about the Masada and the siege.
Yeah,
of the Roman
I want to
soldiers.
say that there's no mistakes here.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. And once again, if we get David Chase on, we can ask him.
He talks about the 900 Jews that fought off 15,000 Romans in the fort of Masada for 2 years, and he says, "Where are the Romans? So where are the Romans now?" And Tony says, "You're looking at him, you asshole."
You're looking at him, asshole.
Which is true and not true.
They call Hesh the middle of the night. He answers the phone once again. The
I
smart
told you
Jewish
so.
concierge,
Don't get involved with those guys, he said.
and he tells him what he thinks he should do. Threaten. They give him a bris so that.
And you never had a bris. Is that what you said?
I never had a bris. I'm circumcised, if that's what you're asking.
I didn't ask that. You volunteered that. I just asked about the bris.
Can we show that?
I don't think so. No, we don't need to show that. But he says finish the bris. Are brises left unfinished? Is that how it is, or what is it? I don't know.
Well, no. Well, they clip you, and he's saying finish it, take the whole thing.
Take the whole thing off. Yeah.
That's what that's about. Take the whole salami. Boom. All right. And, of course, the son-in-law folds. You don't see that, but
that works.
That's what happened. Okay. So Carmela and Charmaine, now this is a great scene.
Do you notice that she said, I've been getting a lot of compliments, right? As she said, the Trillo's called. Now, Gloria Trillo comes later in the show as Annabella's character. She says, the Trillo's called. The husband, he's in computers. They invited us to brunch.
I don't know. I don't know if that... I told you, David used a lot of his family's surnames. Maybe not. Could be,
right?
That's very interesting. All right. So Carmela and Charmaine, they're cleaning up. Charmaine says,
before you were married to him and you broke up with Tony for a summer, I slept with him.
And it's not her thing. She threw that in there.
It wasn't for me.
Like, in other words, it wasn't for me.
Good luck
and
with
I tell
that,
you,
she's saying.
You talk about a fucking touche.
Yeah.
She gave her a knockout punch.
That was a knockout punch.
And left her reeling.
Basically saying you could keep your house and your husband and your life, and I'm good.
I'm good with what I am.
The choices I made.
And you want to, make me look stupid.
You have pity for me,
bad.
and you shouldn't. Yeah, very interesting.
And that is a fucking knockout punch to Carmela right there. All right. Shlomo, played by Chuck Lowe. Tony says, hey, ZZ Top.
ZZ Top.
Throws him against the wall. Shlomo, not unlike Maury and Goodfellas, wants to fuck the guys over.
Well, now he's saying he had to give Ned Eisenberg's character some money.
He wants to, just like Maury, he didn't want to pay. That's what got him killed. He kept pushing them off. He didn't want to pay the De Niro character, Ray Liotta character, just like Maury, very similar. Played the same kind of guy. You asked for a favor, we did you a favor, and now you're going to fuck us.
And he's saying, yeah, well, I had to pay, and I wasn't prepared to, and it's coming out of the... But he says, I love how he says, Shlomo says, the Talmud says, and then Jimmy says, I don't care what he says. Obviously, the Talmud's the Bible or whatever. The
very funny.
The scripture.
Tony visits Jackie. Jackie's sick, and Tony's telling him all about it, almost like a high school kid. That's what I was saying. Like, he worships Jackie. He's, hey, we did this, and we ready to pull his pants down. It's like when you're back in high school and you're telling the guys back on the corner what just happened.
Right.
Hey man, we just did blah 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 blah. And Jackie obviously knows he's in trouble. He's taking.
He looks really bad in that scene. Obviously, they made him up to look very.
He doesn't want to know nothing about it, and I think at that point, Tony realizes that Jackie isn't going to make it. Now, Junior and Livia, they talk about Christopher. He goes to
Olivia likes
home.
Christopher. He put up her storm windows.
Livia
is calling the shots. So here, Livia is totally sanctioning a hit, basically,
like not
sanctioning another hit. And Junior says, "Good."
She's the godmother, and you have a lot of sense for an old gal. Livia says, "No, I'm a babbling idiot." That's what my son said. So she's in the home once again. Nobody likes Brendan Falone.
She says, Brendan Falone, I don't know him. Which means he's on his own. He's in the nobody cares for him. Yeah.
So here's the other part when he goes to see Melfi.
That's the third one. This is the acceptance phase when he basically says, I'm not afraid of death. And that's it. And he's calmed down a little bit. She says,
I think he tells her, doesn't he tell her that someone called him a Frankenstein? More
the golem, yeah,
Slow-mo
Frankenstein,
calls him
yeah.
Frankenstein.
The golem, lacking humanity. It's something that he we address with Tony several times, often throughout the series.
Yeah.
Is he a toxic person? You know what I mean? He likes to think he's a great guy taking care of everybody, but he also knows in the back of his mind that he's
a murderer,
a criminal.
All right. The girls sing all through the night as
I want to point this out before we get to that scene. Big Pussy's not in this episode. Vinny's not in this episode. Is that an intentional thing to put in the audience that where's Pussy? Is he off doing something else? Is this the beginning of Pussy dealing with the feds, veering away from the family? What's going on there? He's not in this episode. Episode 3.
I don't think David had that. I don't think. I don't know, but I don't think David had that in his head the whole time that Pussy was going to be a rat. Maybe he had someone was going to be a rat.
Or was Vinny off doing a movie or something?
Well, I know he did Hurricane. I don't know if it was
Denzel Washington movie.
Denzel Washington. That was a big movie. That might have been that time. I'm not sure. Maybe at the end of the season 1, we got to ask Vinny. When we have Vinny on, we got to ask Vinny what's up with that. That's a good question. Okay. They sing all through the night as the video montage continue.
The girls look a little tweaked. They look a little high. And there's a moment when Tony looks at Meadow from the audience, and he looks a little.
Think he knows?
Well, I think he maybe thinks it. Look, I mean, we see it. I see it. Looking at her. Yeah. Does he know and then doesn't want to know? You know what I mean? A parent doesn't know, doesn't want to know. She looks a little tweaked.
Now, Jamie Lynn in real life is a terrific singer. I assume she was singing there. She was on Broadway. I saw her on Broadway. She's a terrific singer. She had a recording career at one point, So Brendan is shot in the tub.
And a very tame way to shoot that. It's not very graphic violent. It's not the violence here is not very graphic. It's very when you think about that hit, you don't really see much.
Well, he shoots him, and then you just see the blood and the cigarette in the bathtub.
There was a lot more graphic murders on the show. That one was. I wonder if that was.
This was basically the first one.
That was the one Christopher does is the first one in the pilot. It's the first killing.
Okay, and then this is the second one. This is but the guy that you killed in the pilot, email. He's in one scene. You don't really know him. Brendan's been in.
Right.
We know he's the first character that is killed. There, right?
I like the scene right before that when Christopher gets captured by these Russian hitmen that Tony or that Junior hired to scare Christopher, right? But Christopher is buying an ice cream from the ice cream man.
Yes.
I think it's a very interesting choice because it makes him, Christopher in the beginning of the series is a kid. He's impulsive throughout the series, but in the beginning, he's very much a kid. And having him buy an ice cream, and he gets very scared. He shits in his pants, literally, during the scene.
Very scared. He thinks Tony sent these 2 Russian guys
because he sold drugs.
To beat the shit out of him because he sold the drugs. So that's what he's yelling. He's fighting for his life. He's scared for his life. Christopher's hysterical, crying, screaming.
Right. But I like that choice of him buying an ice cream because it's the whole way it's portrayed is that Christopher's like
shows him that he's still a kid.
Yeah, very cool.
And
that Junior, very interesting that they have Junior watching Brendan get shot.
Yeah, where was Junior? In
the room.
Hallway?
Yeah, he's right outside the bathroom watching. He's smiling. Very creepy. Like he's watching, he's very satisfied with this hit. He loved it. That's where it ends. Tony watching Meadow sing, and then they have that great Elvis Costello song called Complicated Shadows. The lyrics, I'm just going to read a little bit because they really go very well. Well, your time has come and you're sorry for what you've done. You should have never have been playing with a gun in those complicated shadows. It's very cool, and Elvis is
the music
my
choices. I can't beat it enough into the ground. How great it was, and how all these songs have a meaning, and it's good stuff. This was a good episode 3. I enjoyed talking about it.
It's a really good one.
Very good.
It's time for our Ask Me Anything question.
All right, beautiful.
Here, okay.
Okay, Ask Me Anything segment. This episode of Talking Sopranos is sponsored by Bose. You can experience immersive audio anywhere with the Bose noise canceling Headphones 700.
Bose is the sponsor of our AMA Best Question segment. Now, the winner of our Ask Me Anything Best Question of the Week is George from Newcastle, which I imagine
Pennsylvania.
Newcastle or England?
Oh, I don't know.
I think we were I think it's England. And we're sending George a pair of Bose Headphones 700. So George asks, I want to ask both of you what your favorite use of a song was in the show. Personally, I'm tied between Tiny Tears at the end of season 1, which is by the Tindersticks, and World Destruction at the start of season 4 after Chris kills the cop that allegedly killed his dad. So I'm going to take this question this week. For me, I would say season 6, episode 9. The episode is called The Ride. Christopher does heroin and gets high at the feast. It's a great sequence montage with a song called The Dolphins by a guy named Fred Neil. I just love the tone of it, the vibe of the song, and how it matches the energy of the heroin high and Christopher's interaction at the feast, or non-interaction at the feast. Fred Neil wrote Everybody's Talking at Me. Everybody's Talking, that song from Midnight Cowboy, although Harry Nilsson recorded it for the movie.
Harry Nilsson, yeah.
But there's a song that Fred Neil wrote in the pilot called The Other Side of This Life that the Jefferson Airplane recorded. Fred Neil was had a very interesting career, was big in the folk scene in the early 60s. Bob Dylan's first job as a musician was backup harmonica player for Fred Neil in the Village in the early 60s. So I'd say that I love how they use that song. A close second would be House Arrest, that episode, House Arrest, season 2, episode 11. The end, they use Johnny Thunders' You Can't Put Your Arm Around a Memory, which is, I'm a huge Johnny Thunders fan from, he started with the New York Dolls, but that song is just one of my favorites, the title of which comes from The Honeymooners. And Ralph says, tells Alice, you can't put your arms around a memory. And she says, I can't even put my arms around you. Classic.
For me, I enjoyed, I'm a huge Van Morrison fan.
Me too.
And season 5, episode 13, the song Glad Tidings. It's played twice. Once when Christopher meets Silvio at the Roy Rogers, and then when Tony kills Tony Blundetto, Steve Buscemi.
In the same episode.
The song was played twice. And it goes, and we'll send you glad tidings from New York. Hope that you will come in right now. So when Tony gets out of the car or the truck, and he's got the shotgun, and he sneaks around, and Tony Blundetto has groceries, the music starts, and it's Glad Tidings from New York. And Van Morrison, who is a big Soprano fan, and Vinny Pastore, who's friendly with him. I think when we were touring Ireland, we were supposed to go next month. Vinny was inviting him to the show. Van Morrison is a big Soprano fan.
Does he live in Belfast?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Glad Tidings from New York. That's a really a good song. And if you go on YouTube, there's a montage of it. It's great.
Yeah, really he's amazing. Astro Weeks is one of my favorite albums.
He's a cranky
of all
fuck.
time.
He's a cranky.
Well, so are you, though, Steve. But we still love you.
That's a good point.
Maybe that's why you like him.
All right. So thanks for listening. And remember to subscribe to the Talking Sopranos podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram and like us on Facebook.
Our executive producer is Jeff Sussman. Producer is Andy Verderam. Our music was composed and performed by Elijah Amerton, who used to go by the name Community Room for a brief time, but is now using his own name, Elijah Amerton, a very talented composer, musician. Our production crew includes Eric Desi, Bobby Hutch, Frank McKay, Ty Verderam, and Ciara Schirripa. Talking Sopranos is a Pod Jams production.
All right, my friend. Condolences again to your cousin.
Thank you.
And hang in there and be safe, everybody.
Hang in there, everybody. God bless.
Talk to you soon.